Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you the next installment of this brief mini-series in which we are going through the scarier factions of 40k and seeing if I can do a little deep dive on something that might help them or what's going on with them. Today, as you can probably tell from the title and the thumbnail, is the Drukhari, who are falling from grace, kind of. If anything, they're just falling out of people's hands. Nobody is playing them anymore, and not to say like that many people were playing them when they were reaching those high peaks in the last, but as player count goes down, you're less likely to get wins at tournaments. So I just kind of wanted to throw some more coal into the furnace of ideas that I think Drukhari could pull out that I'm not seeing in any of the list. And going on towards the list, I just want to mention that it's not like Drukhari are just all of a sudden bad. In fact, at least once a week for the past couple of weeks, there's been a top four. So there's still potential. Uh, if we see some of these names come back to some other events, might get some more tops. But I know that Drukhari is a, for some odd reason, controversial army in the fact that it's not good. It's just like, but it keeps doing pretty good. So that's all I want to say is that it's at least good enough, right? So we're seeing Sky Splinter Assault take a bit of a dip, and Real Space Raiders, nobody's been using that one for a long time, and when I was trying to do my research, I quickly found out why nobody is bringing Real Space Raiders, because I think the last video, depending on when I recorded this and what got released, uh, I've talked about how I don't really like rules that are detachment rules that are just, hey, here's your army rule, more of it in a way. So like cohort cybernetica for admech, bully boys for orcs, and real space raiders is just like, what if you just had more pain tokens for your army rule? It's just like that. That's it. So yeah, I don't know if they're ever going to truly fix that. I do like their idea of fixing Drukhari that were suffering at the start of the edition. Was just like, what if we just release another detachment early? Like, y'all, we didn't do anything there. So like, what if you just had a detachment for real? So hey, I like that approach. But going into it, let's first talk about a little bit about Power from Pain, which, as I was, brushing up on what the fuck Drukhari actually do, I was like, damn, this is just shittier, like, judgment tokens from Votan, which also explains why people don't really take Drukhari that seriously. And not to say that you need to take them uber seriously, but I get it now. Um, if you use a pain token to empower a Drukhari unit during the movement or charge phase, you can reroll advance or charge rolls for that unit during that phase. And if you do it in the shooting or the fight phase, you can reroll hit rolls, but if you do it in the fight phase, you gain an additional 1 AP. Now, the thing that I didn't know about Drukhari and getting pain tokens, I thought it just had to be destroying units. Didn't know if your enemy fails a battle shock test, you get a pain token. So like that's on me for my lack of knowledge. But I was like, man, why did GW really want to care about battle shock tests this edition? I don't know why they really put that in everything that they could. Now don't get me wrong, it's thematic, right? Like it makes sense. And at least it wasn't like the only part of the rule, but I was just like, now why they do that? Going to just skip over Real Space Raiders and just go straight to what I want to talk about with Sky Splinter Assault real quick before we get into the things that I think you should be thinking about. Is that Sky Splinter Assault, when a Drukhari unit from your army disembarks from a transport until the end of the turn, that unit's ranged weapons have ignores cover, and they have lance if, they go into melee. And you might be wondering, but you disembarked. How would you ever get into melee? Pounce on the prey just after in your movement phase. After a Drukhari infantry unit from your army disembarks from a transport that made a normal move this phase, that infantry unit can declare a charge. So, just real quick, and then the other big one, Night Shield. Yeah, we'll be talking about Night Shield. One Drukhari vehicle from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks during the shooting phase has a 4-up invulnerable save. Remember this, okay? Now, of course, you're looking at your Raiders. Venom, sure, like they're gonna just blow up anyway, but maybe your Raiders and your Ravagers. Scary will tell you all about the Void Raven Bomber, but today I want to talk to you about the Razor Wing Jet Fighter. Now, speaking of how I just said Scary, it would be completely disingenuous of me if I didn't mention that when I was figuring out what to do or looking for information on this video, immediately was just like, I know Scary of Scarred Cast has stuff that I need to look at. So, deep dive. This one has been a great resource. He has videos. If you're looking at this video, you already are familiar with Scary and Scarred Cast. So I was like, yeah, I need to go look at that before I say something completely stupid. And to that point, I don't think what I'm going to say in this is the same point that he makes in some of the videos, but maybe if I'm missing it, but we'll get to that. So, again, the one I want to talk about today is the Razor Wing Jet Fighter. More so because I I'm going to say something dangerous. Okay, everybody strapped in for this one. Seatbelts buckled. Hell, if you're a Drukhari player, you might not. But no, can't say that. I don't think. Everybody buckle your seatbelts. Yeah, there we go. No jokes, no sarcasm. Anywho, uh, buckle your seatbelts because I am starting to think that the Razor Wing Jet Fighter might be the tech piece that you're looking for. Um, in the sense that I think might be the tech pieces people are looking for. I know GW is trying really hard to make flying non existent this edition. However, we have the Tau Tiger Shark that came out to play and is pretty okay. Scary has showed us the Void Raven Bomber is actually pretty decent to take for Drukhari. Who else? What else can I think of out the top of my? Well, spoiler, but yeah, sisters don't have one. Admech. My hot take is that there actually is one like Admech, one that's actually kind of viable, and I refuse to tell you two of my other ones because that might be a later video. So I'm not going to spoil that now. But the point stands that I think aircraft. I'm not going to say that they're time to shine, but then looking at the point values of some of these other aircraft that you all have in these factions, I'm like, this is kind of insane. So for 170 points, you can get a Razor Wing jet fighter that is T8, 4 up save, 6 up invuln, 10 wounds. And you go, well, that's not the best. Toughness 8 isn't that high. You're right. It also has stealth, and having an invuln no matter what happens is pretty good. So if a tank or I'll just say my Tyrannofex tries to shoot one, first off, it's stealth, so -1 to hit, so I will not be hitting on better than 3s, unless I guess if I'm on Crusher Stampede and I spend a CP for it, sure. But, you know, hit on 3s already with my low volume of shots, only got 2 shots in that thing. Stealth, and the invuln of 6 no matter what. But because you're probably bringing this in Sky Splinter Assault, uh, and it's a Drukhari vehicle, you can make that a 4-up invulnerable save and then keep it around for longer for the 10 wounds. Right? Like that's it. And you may be wondering, Monster, why the hell would I want to bring the Razor Wing Jet Fighter? First off, this is going to be one of those videos in which I talk about what else is in the meta for like once. Usually when I do these kind of things, I focus on what the faction has to offer. But seeing as how Drukhari clearly have the potential to win games, GTs, tournaments, whatever it may be, you see when they go down, it's a highlight of things that are entering the meta pool that are a little bit scary for things to deal with. One of those things being Deathwing Knights. And you go, okay, cool, Deathwing Knights. What on earth does that have to do with anything? Now, I'm not going to say that you aren't going to have an issue still with the 2-up save at base, but when you have something that can hit them, but they can't hit, that has anti-infantry too, so it's wounding, getting the wound rolls in on twos, you'll get through it a lot sooner. Now, why can't Deathwing Knights hit your plane? Well, if you look, even though they have an anti-monster, anti-vehicle 4 weapon, it's a melee weapon. And when you look at that, they can't fly. They have deep strike, but they can't fly. And you see, the Razor Wing Jet Fighter is an aircraft that doesn't have hover, so it's never getting charged, is what I'm getting at. Aircraft, now mind you, you can't declare a charge, and only units that can fly can select an aircraft unit as a target of their charge. So, such units can end their charge move with an engagement range of one or more enemy aircraft, yada yada yada. Basically, all I'm saying is that you don't have to worry about if you take a Razor Wing Jet Fighter, you don't have to worry about getting into combat and getting hit back by these Deathwing Knights that your Drukhari are having a bit of an issue with. Now, as I was looking through data sheets, I did see that Drukhari have access to quite a few instances of anti-infantry and lance and +1 to wound and things of that sort. But that means that you have to put yourself in the danger zone of the Deathwing Knights, which is pretty much everything because they have deep strike and their deploy teleport homer uh, lets you deep strike pretty much 9 inches horizontally of the enemies, like wherever, right? For with a rapid ingress. Uh, and then they also subtract 1 from damage characteristics. So like, yeah, it's cool if you want to take your funky little guys and try to stab Deathwing Knights to like death. Yeah, it's not going to work out for you too much, right? So I am just humbly suggesting you employ something like the Razorwing Jet Fighter. And why that over the Void Raven Bomber? Not to say that Scari's wrong. In fact, I fully endorse. As you can say, I'm gonna endorse an aircraft, but don't look too tough, okay? Don't let nobody look too tough at what their aircraft does for the points values. Like, the more I'm looking to other faction sheets and things like that, and just what people are building, the values are different. Like, don't get me wrong, you can't do actions with aircraft, and they have 0C, so unless they can hover, and you find a way to give them OC, nudge nudge wink wink, if you know one of my favorite factions, uh, it's not something that you have to think about for the most part. But for these other ones, it's just like, yeah, I'll sacrifice 1 unit not being able to do actions if I can blow my enemy's faction off the board, especially when you get into other things that Drukhari have a tough time into, such as World Eaters and Blood Angels just got their book. Now, Blood Angels do have flying units that will now be an issue, but, I don't know how often we'll see those, or if they're that much of a threat into it. I haven't looked at the codex yet, so that's on me. But for a vast majority of the armies that give Drukhari like a straight up issue, right? The ones that have to punch you in the face and the mouth. the melee armies that'll run you down, Black Templars too. Why not have something that can't get hit? Well, when they try to hit it, it's a little bit harder. And if they do hit it, it's even harder to get rid of it. While you're taking it out with 2 Dark Lances, mind you. So the other thing about the Razor Wing Jet Fighter, besides just the fact that it's an aircraft and has anti-infantry too, it has +1 to hit on. This is the one that like perplexed me because my brain did that auto read thing where you're like, oh, I know what this says, and you're like, no, it's excluding units that can fly. So everything that's on the ground, you're now hitting on twos for your ranged attacks, okay? But again, if you're getting this in melee, you're already goofing up. So hitting on twos, you're Drukhari, so you can empower this, power from pain, and make this so that you reroll hits in the shooting phase. So hitting on twos, rerolling ones, or rerolling, let's see, yeah, rerolling the hit roll in general. So you can get to the wound parts, and if you're wounding on twos, well, yeah, you can get it through with a d6 +3 blast weapon. It's already 1, so they can't take it down lower because it's at a maximum of down to 1, or is that to a minimum of 1? Not sure how that wording works. It's GW, but anywho, they can't be hurt for. You can't make this damage characteristic 0. Let me just double check. Unless there's something special about them. Last I checked in the FAQ, you can't take it down to 0. So you can take out, you can start chipping away. I'm not going to say that you're going to get rid of them in one activation between the 2 Dark Lances, right? 2 Dark Lances. The Razor Wing missiles, anti-infantry 2, blast, d6 +3, hitting on twos. Who cares about the strength at that point because you're wounding on twos. Damage 1, of course, sure, but 48 inches away. And the Splinter Cannon is probably the other one you're bringing. Don't somebody please tell me why this has assault. Like, why the fuck would I care if my aircraft has assault when it has infinite range? Well, infinite movement. Like, what the fuck? Um, don't know why that's on there, but rapid fire still takes that to 2. Splinter Cannon, anti-infantry 3 up. Cool, that's fine. Sustained hits 1 on 3 attacks. 3, 1, 2. So, hey, hey, 2 damage. Sure, that comes down to 1, but sustained hits 1, anti-infantry 3, anti-infantry 2, blast, and Dark Lances. The odds aren't high that you take out your enemy's equivalent of a Deathwing Knights or a. Let's talk about another big bad that I've mentioned. Let's see what Exalted 8 balance profile look like. Or 8 balance, tougher one. One of them is the one that's just like tougher for no reason. And the name that's odd or whatever. Is it Exalted 8 bound or 8 bound? Either way, Exalted 8 bound, T6, 3, 5, 3. Feel no pain of a 6 up, sure. Let's look at the. Real quick, just look at the 8 bound just to make sure. Okay, yeah, it is the Exalted 8 pound. They just have the additional feel no pain. There's something in World Eaters that confuses me that I can't remember at the time, but at the moment. But yeah, if you're worried about Exalted 8 bound, guess what? 6 models, 3 wounds. Sure, they have a feel no pain and again deep striking, but your anti-infantry is there compared to. This is where I go to my bit of comparisons, in which you go, but my Void Raven Bomber can just wound them on 4s or on 3s, right? Yada yada yada. However, comma, if you're bringing your 2 Void Lances. I don't know why you would replace them with Void Size when you have the option for anti-tank here. I I don't know why you would do it, but I I don't think you are. So you have your Void Lances, sure. That's 4 attacks. Hitting on 3s, though, sure, same empowered rule will give you that you can reroll it, but hitting on 3s is less chance to hit than hitting on 2s, and your D3 or D6 blast is just less attacks than D6 +3 blast, and then an additional weapon to go along with. So I'm not saying that you have to leave the Void Raven Bomber at home, but I remember one time that Scary was asked about the Void Raven Bomber, and I think somebody asked like why there were two in the list or something like that. Don't remember what this was on, but the response was like, yeah, one can kind of get hit while I still have another one to spare. Take out everything. So I'm saying maybe instead of two Void Raven bombers, you make one a Razor Wing jet fighter and figure out what you need for the occasion. If you need to get through some of these chaff lists where there's a fuck ton of models like 100 Black Templars or um, Chaos Cult, Green Tide. I don't want to say it, but I just did a video about how Unending Swarm isn't too bad right now, so maybe Unending Swarm. But, Razor Wing Jet Fighter, this seems to be pretty decent for the meta where you're taking out both the Terminator esque Terminator armor esque units as well as having a way to get through these fucking massive unit count, MSU unit count fucking armies where you either have that, uh, maybe somebody's brought out their Wraith Guard. So, to that point, that's why I'm just vouching for maybe look at the Razor Wing Jet Fighter from somebody that doesn't play the army. So again, this is all pensive salt, but looking at what is in the meta and how cheap it is compared to the options I see in other armies, with this still having stealth, T8, 4, 6 can be 4, 4, 10 wounds, I think it's worth an experimentation. But moving on from that, the other thing, the Void Weaver. This has a 4-up invulnerable save, and I was thinking as I was looking at things, you can ally this in because it's a Harlequin. You might as well just try to. If you're already just an elf, so you blow away at the wind, right? Your glass cannon, that's the whole thing. You might as well just see if you can roll 4-ups like a GSC or Demons player. Like, why not just make it so that a lot of your units in your army is 4-up invulnerable save, and that's how it goes, right? The other reason that I'm suggesting the Void Weaver for you to look into bringing it is that once again you have access to Last Cannon, but better Last Cannon, right? Prismatic Cannon, Focus Lances, 2 shots, hitting on 3s, Strength 12, -3 AP, damage 4. You can get through some things, 115, and then if you don't need to shoot a tank down, 2d6, 3, 4, 0, 1 blast. Again, same situation as to why I'm vouching for the Razor Wing Jet Fighter. It gives you everything you need to fight with right now. And 646, the way that I've heard people talk about a Neurolictor being surprisingly tanky, or a Lictor that doesn't have an invuln but just has fights first and is lone up, yeah, Void Weaver might want to do that. And the other thing about Void Weaver is that it will invoke Battle Shock or Evoke. Is it Evoke or Invoke in this case? Not sure. Uh, Battle Shock test after shooting. And what happens if they fail their Battle Shock test? Whoa! You get the bow 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 bow. Why'd it go away? Did I scroll it by accident? The bow 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 pain tokens. Bow. So you can do the things, and then if you destroy the unit, you get another pain token. So like, you know, just saying that the option's there. I don't think you should try to invest heavily into Battle Shock Test coming from a Tyranid player, but it, it right? So like the worst that could happen is that Void Weaver, you shoot something. Now, don't mind you, it's 115. All right, you spent 115 points for this, but you have pretty decent profiles, and you have 2 shuriken cannons on top of that. So that means 6 attacks, sustained hits 1, 6-1-2. If they don't get battle shock, they're probably hurt, and if they do get battle shock, you've turned off their stratagems, you've gotten a pain token, and that you can live your happy little life. And I will admit this comes off of the back of hearing Scary talk about that even allies allies causing your opponent to fail battle shock test still count, which like I kind of figured, but now it completely took away that worry from my head because I'm like, well, is it going to be something stupid, some caveat that I don't know about? Where because it just says if an enemy unit fails a battle shock test, so like even if you're playing some weird like double situation, I shouldn't say weird because I think some of those double like things I've seen on YouTube are kind of cool, but like if your partner is bringing 1,000 points of Chaos Knights. I know I didn't say Tyranids because we're actually not the best at Battle Shock Test. But like if your opponent brought Chaos Knights or say Dread Talons, whatever, right? And got some Battle Shock Test, shit. Night Lords Drukhari team up, that would be cool. That also is what I meant to put in this line earlier, in which I was just like, damn, the Night Lords are just like the Drukhari of Chaos or the Space Marines because Drukhari were first. But neither here nor there. That just sidetrack tangent. Put in Void Weavers. Try it. That's the takeaway there. And then lastly, Death Jesters. Again, 4 up invulnerable saves, 3, 6, 4, 4. This comes off of the back of them being low nop. Uh, as I see how many people are bringing lone op characters to drop in. Calidus Assassin, Cypher. I know both of them have Lord of Deceit, but don't worry about that. Lictors for my own squad. Other lone ops. Like lone op is a good rule that people make use of, and even some Eldari players. I shouldn't say some. About half ish of the Eldari list that I see top have Death Jesters in them. Especially, apparently, the combo with that, the secret tech is put Fate's Messenger to make it like a little bit cooler. But um, yeah, you don't have access to that. And if you bring Death Jester as an ally to Drukhari, but it gives you a lone op unit that you don't have to invest one of your entire little guy units. That I'm not saying that's the biggest problem, where Drukhari usually has enough units to spare that you can just take them to go do something. But if you have a lone op do it, you can still dedicate your entire other unit that gets rules and shits to doing what you want it to do as Drukhari. But also, Death Jester, when they're not doing a little action monkey thing, in your shooting phase after this metal has shot, if one of those attacks destroyed an enemy model, that enemy model's unit must take a battle shock test. Dev wounds, 6, 1, 2, 3 shots. In your shooting phase, you select one of these, either ignores cover, precision, or sustain hits 3. Now, since you're bringing this as an ally, I doubt you're taking sustained hits 3 because 3 shots and not being able to make any of those 6s, like with a fate dice, I don't think so. But if you take ignores cover or precision, yeah, I think you're going for it, especially if you're trying to get like a Technomancer out of a Brick of Wraiths, or ignores cover just so you can go back to doing more damage to the aforementioned Deathwing Knights. And then Battle Shock test, and guess what? If they fail, pain token, boom, 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 and they have their things turned off, so their stratagems turned off, so that means no Armor of Contempt to do it. And that's the other thing. Not to say that this is a gotcha, but this is in my head again, not as a Drukhari player, but or an Eldar player, but something that you can kind of weigh your options with. If you set up your Death Jester, where it can shoot again, just going with the Deathwing Knight example, Deathwing Knights. They think nothing of it, so they don't bother using Armor of Contempt and they get battle shocked. And guess what? Now they can't use Armor of Contempt, and then you finish it off with a Razorwing Jet Fighter. That that's a pretty big chunk gone. Or like if they don't void armor I was going to say Ironheart champion, but their Hearthkin uh or Einherjar guard. Like why is it Einherjar guard? Sorry, I'm blanking on the Votann actual names right now. But like, they don't do that. Guess what? That is a dangerous unit to just not have access to. And if they do, immediately go, hey, I'm going to avoid armor, backslash armor of contempt. Then you know not to waste your time with it anymore, and you just move on to something else, and that's what it is. So Death Jester, I think that's cool, and kind of to the same point with the Void Weaver. I see it more so with Death Jester because it's 90 points, and since it's a lone op, it's a little bit more unassuming because people, there's a good chance you destroy a model, right? Um, Actually, maybe not because if they are a -1 damage, but so that means at most you can do 3 damage. Um, so maybe not, but if you've already damaged them from something else, maybe there's a chance that there's less of a chance that they waste armor of contempt on a Death Jester shot than it is getting fired upon by a Void Weaver, right? Like Void Weaver, you look at it, and you go, all right, there's a chance that that kills my models. Maybe not all of them, but more than I would like them to. So they'll probably pop it on something like a Void Weaver. Maybe not a Death Jester. But again, I'm not a Drukhari player. You know who's a Drukhari player that knows things? Scary on Scarredcast. You already know this person if you're looking at this video. So, hey. That's all I had on this one. I'm okay with Drukhari falling out of favor. I think they look kind of cool, so maybe that'll be an army that I pick up down the line and just pick up everybody selling them now that they're not the meta, the top of the meta, and be like, I don't want to play with you anymore, and I pick those up. I don't know, maybe we'll see. I'll check eBay. But yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment, and until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.